July 30, all Jamaicans 18 and over have been able to make an appointment for their first and second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. If you haven't yet made your appointment and would like to do so, visit the Ministry of Health's website at www.moh.gov.jm today. In the meantime, be sure to follow all necessary COVID-19 protocols and stay safe. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm Sandra Johnson. Stay tuned.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60, and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
The Atlantic hurricane season is still in effect and will end on November 30. This week on Get the Facts, we take a look at the island's preparedness in the event we're affected by a hurricane. Find out more next.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Camro. So happy to be back in your company. Today we'll be talking about the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season, which runs from June 1 to November 30. We have with us Mr. Richard Thompson, who is the Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ARTPEM. He's going to tell us about the expectations for the season this year and the country's level of preparedness and how to protect life and property. Mr. Thompson, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good. Let us start with what are we to expect for this season? We've been hearing that it's going to be an above normal season. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, the season has been projected to be above average. Average normally for a hurricane season is 14. So it is predicted to be 13 to 20 named storms, 6 to 10 to be hurricanes starting at 74 miles per hour. For your storm system, so it's really start at about 39 miles per hour, classifying as a tropical storm. And then it goes through a process to be up to, we hear a lot about Category 5 system, which is at over 157 miles per hour. And so we are expecting as well 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Major hurricanes being Category 3 systems, that is at 111 miles per hour, starting at that level, and so it is really shaping up to be very active season. Mm-hmm. We would have had 5 named systems already. We would have had a close shave with Elsa. For the very first time, we would have had a system forming so early in the Caribbean and tracking close to us. It's really showing that climate change is real, yes. and so we have to pay critical attention now to how the season is shaping up. Yes. We normally have our active part of the season, or the most active part of the season for us in the Caribbean, and especially for us here in Jamaica, being August to September. And so it could be a situation where it will be that active going throughout, or we might just have a lull and a kind of ramping up again in August to September. Okay. So it is really shaping up to be very active. Last year would have gone to about 30 systems, where we would have gone outside of the regular names for hurricane, and then we went into the Greek alphabet. It might not be so active this year, but it is shaping up to be a very active season.
My next question will be then, are we ready?
Yes, we are. We would have done a lot of work going into the season. There would have been a meeting of the National Disaster Risk Management Council that is chaired by the Prime Minister, and we would have done extensive work in terms of looking at our shelters, looking at our priority drains across the country, the work that the municipal corporation would have done in terms of their own preparation as well, looking at the localized drains, looking at the shelter process. They're a part of the process with the ODPEM. And so from last year, we would have put into the mix in terms of the assessment for shelters, the Ministry of Health, given COVID, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the Superintendent of Roads and Works, because our shelters have to be properly prepared and they have to be outside of the COVID standards that we are putting in, or that we would have put in from last year. We also have to ensure that our shelters is equipped to take the age population and persons who have disabilities. So we are actually catering for everyone in our shelters.
So we had a little test with Elsa.
Yes.
Did our systems hold up?
It hold up to some extent. We would have seen a lot of rainfall.
And some flooding.
And some flooding. So it held up to what was expected. Yes. What it does for us now, it literally provides us with a kind of a live simulation.
Yes.
So for us now to kind of recheck and have a relook at our systems and then now reshape what we have to do going further into the hurricane season.
Okay. So that's ODPEM. What should Jamaicans be doing now to secure their homes?
For the general public, one of the things that normally happens during hurricanes is that persons tend to lose their roofs. So your roof retrofitting is critical to the process, to the process of individual preparation. So a person should check. A lot of persons probably would have found out during Elsa that they would have been having roof leaks and all these things. So they have to, you sort that out now. You look at your roof. Look at the members, look at whether you have enough hurricane straps. If you don't have those, you put those in. You look at your general yard situation. If you have a lot of stuff on the outside, sometimes we tend to have a lot of old stuff that we would throw down in the yard. You have to start cleaning up those, getting rid of them. What you can get rid of, what you have to store, you put them in storage, because these can act as missiles during a hurricane. And you don't want for it to damage your house, damage your neighbor, and also damage individuals. So you have to make the necessary preparation now to clean up those. A lot of us we tend to have trees in our yard, mango trees, coconut trees. If you have to do some limbing of those, you do that. If the limbs are too close to the house, you do that. If the trees are too large, we speak about replanting of trees and looking at what is happening in terms of climate change. But if for your home security and for security of lives, if the trees are too large and they are too close to your house, you probably might need to think of getting rid of those. And then you replant something which is not so close to the house, because you still want to ensure that we're maintaining that kind of environmental and ecosystem dynamics. Right. So you replant those. But if it's too close to the house, then you have to look at doing some limbing or removing the tree altogether so you can be protecting your house. So
we need to be looking at our roofs, we need to be looking at the trees that we have around us. And what about our windows? Yes, so for our windows, those tend to blow out in a storm if they are not properly protected. So for persons who can afford to put in storm shutters, we say put those in. Yes, they are pretty expensive to do, but if you can afford to do it, you have to do it to protect your windows. Yes. For those persons who can't afford that, we normally say to persons, ensure that you're having enough plyboard around. So if we have gone to hurricane watch, then we go to hurricane warning, and you have to now start to doing your battening up. Then you can use your plyboard to batten up to protect your windows. Okay, we're going to take a break now and come back with more useful information on hurricane preparedness. Please stay with us.
Criminal minds think they are cunning. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency have them running. Your friend a shout, come scam. Take time running, because we ready for the ops. Drive up on your block, step out now me block, cyber take about your laptop. Pull up every lock, no evidence to drop. We put it in a cuffs and now we have the underground. Sin you say scam, you better look out for. When you move corrupt, better look out for. Please say you get where, look out for. Look out for, look out for. From you say scam, you better look out for. When you move corrupt, better look out for. Please say you get where, look out for. Look out for, look out
The proceeding was brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, with the kind support of NIA and USAID.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking about the Atlantic hurricane season. With us is Mr. Richard Thompson, who is the Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. Tell us now about our shelters. We are still in a pandemic, right? You have to observe certain protocols. You have to train your staff. Tell us, how is that going and how ready are we?
Yeah, so we are still in a global pandemic. We still, COVID is still real in Jamaica, despite what a lot of persons might still be thinking. COVID is still real, so we have to make preparation for our shelters amidst COVID, and everything that we have done for our shelters were done against COVID imperatives. And we would have started this from 2020, when we would have had our first case in March of 2020. We start looking at how best now we would be managing our shelters going into the hurricane season. So we would have recrafted our national shelter protocol to ensure that it is reflecting COVID standards. So part of that standard is to ensure that there is temperature checks at the facilities, there is enough sanitizers at the facilities. Shelters are generally crowded, so you have to look at your social distancing protocol, or you set out your cots with your 6 feet intervals and 6 feet around the cots. Yes. But critical to that, and one of the most essential components, is to ensure that there are isolation areas in every single shelters. So we would have done all the shelter assessment way before the hurricane season, and we would have put in place 86 shelters nationally. And every single one of these shelters have an isolation area, where if someone comes in and they're already showing sign of COVID, you can't turn them away, because you have to provide safe refuge for everyone in a hurricane. You have to ensure now that those persons can be placed in an isolation area. If persons are already in the shelters and you have persons showing any signs of COVID-19, then they are placed in the isolation areas as well. Isolation area is equipped with its own bathroom facilities. Some of the isolation areas have bathroom already attached to the facility. Some we have to ensure that there is a bathroom close enough to the facility where that would be used, the isolation area, that is, where that would be used by the persons alone who are in isolation. Yes. So you don't have a mixing of the general shelter population with persons who are placed in isolation, because if they are actually positive with COVID, we want to ensure that we don't have kind of a double whammy where we are responding to a hurricane, and then you start having, after the hurricane response, an explosion of the cases of COVID in the country.
Persons have had to be trained as well, right, to manage these centers.
Yes, so the training would be looking now at the new protocol, and so all our shelter, we would have gone through a process of training and some resensitization with our shelter managers. A little bit difficult in this whole COVID-19 scenario, where we can't have much face-to-face interaction, yes. But a lot of the training were done, using the digital platforms that everyone is using these days to do those trainings. So we would have done those, and we would have done our resensitization. Right.
Tell us about the shelters. Where can we find them, and some numbers that we can?
Well, they're all around in every single parish. And we have very experienced shelter managers. Some would have been in the system from in the 80s, and we commend those persons for the level of voluntarism and that kind of sense of duty to nation. And so they're across the entire country. Persons can make contact with their parish offices. They can go on our ODPEM website at www.odpem.org.jm. Part of the new process as well is to, whenever time our shelters are activated, you can go on the ODPEM website and see the shelters that would have been activated. The move from green to red, that kind of thing. So we're using the technology to facilitate. There are going to be times
when you can't go on our website.
And so you can call the ODPEM office 906-967425 or 754-907728. and you can call your parish offices as well, and we list all those offices on the UDPEM website at present, and there's a list in there so persons can go on from now, and you familiarize yourself, and you write down the numbers, and you get the contact as well for your parish offices.
When people are going to shelters, they tend to take everything their own. What should we not take to shelters? What do we need to take?
Well, you need to take for the outset some non-perishables. You take your so you can tie you over. We have to ensure as well that we are providing for persons who generally won't be able to come in with any supplies. So the state mechanism will ensure that those persons are provided for. You take along your medication. Persons who have some degree of comorbidities, your diabetes, your hypertension, you take along your medication. If you have any other condition and you're on medication, you take along those with you. Formulas for babies, if you're taking babies into the shelters, formulas, diapers, those things for babies, those have to be in. We don't admit animals in the current shelters. That's something that I think we have to look at going forward, because a lot of persons now in Jamaica, we used to have dogs, but there are more dog owners. Yes. There are more dog owners in country now, and persons have other pets. So that's something as well that we have to start looking at, how you provide an additional shelter for pets and all these things. It happens in other jurisdictions, something that we have to pay critical attention to in Jamaica. Yes. But for now, you don't take your pets in. We try to ensure that you're not bringing in any illicit items. So the shelter managers have to manage those. The constabularies are part of the process. They do their regular checks from time to time. So no knives, no illegal guns, that kind of thing. You don't bring those into the shelters. And you best as possible come in. And what we have been advocating for is that when you come into the shelters, you take care of the facilities. And you leave them in the same condition that you would have gone in and see it, or leave it even better. Yes, so that's because our shelters are for our children. A lot of them are schools. Yes, and so we have to ensure that upon leaving them, they still are in good condition for our children to use for their education.
Yeah. What is the current approach to disaster management at the community level?
Well, it's at the core of what we do, because the community is really where the rubber hits the road. So we have a three-tier process in country. We have a national structure, a parish structure, and a community structure. So we have what is called community disaster teams. Yes. And so a lot of work is done there, in terms of the community groupings, and a lot of training goes on in there in terms of having person understanding their risks. Understanding how they have to respond to their needs in terms of their vulnerability. So there are a lot of zonal groups that have been formed across the country. So you zone them in areas that are extremely vulnerable to disasters, and we do a lot of training in the communities, and you get a lot of community volunteers. A lot of our shelter managers were trained as a part of the process. And what we find is that we have more women volunteering at that process, being shelter managers. And
we need to call out some men, though.
And so we call on the men all the time, and we have a lot of men now start being more involved in the process in terms of the community search and rescue teams and the overall community group.
So the government now has a catastrophe fund.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. What's the role of it, and how does it help after a disaster or during a disaster?
The catastrophic fund is part of what is called disaster risk financing, and to the broader level, looking at disaster risk transfer. So for us, we would have a national disaster fund, a national contingency fund, and we also have the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Fund, which is the CRIF. Mm-hmm. So the catastrophic fund is to look at multiple pillars.
So catastrophic?
The catastrophic fund. So it's to look at multiple pillars of risk financing. So if something should happen major in country, you can draw down funding from various elements to ensure that we are responding to disasters. Right, so it is essential to have. So countries, you are liquid enough One, to do, a lot of it is around reconstruction.
Okay.
So you would have the necessary fund in place to do your reconstruction after a major impact.
Excellent. One last question. So what should we be buying now to ensure that we have our hurricane bag
Kits,
ready?
yes.
Kit, yes. I mean, people go on and buy meat and
Meat,
all that.
no,
Yes.
not necessarily, because you can't cook in the shelters, and
Right.
it's something that we advocate,
Yes.
that there should be no cooking in the shelters.
So we need 10 things.
You need your non-perishables, so your corned beef, crackers, mackerel, sardine. You start looking at your first aid kits. That is essential for homes. So if you have to take out some of the stuff that are expired, you remove those and you start putting in new items.
Yes.
And you constantly circulate them. So if you buy something now, before it gets to the expiration, you try to use it and replenish your stock. So you constantly do your rotation.
Okay.
So now is a good time to you start putting in those items.
Yes, yes, yes.
And restock.
We're definitely out of time, so we'll have to probably call you back to discuss some other issues, okay? We hope
Anytime,
that we have a
anytime.
safe season.
We
We
do hope so.
Yes, yes, yes. This has been Get the Facts, and our guest was Mr. Richard Thompson, who is Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. For more information on disaster preparedness, please visit the agency's website at odpem.org.jm. You may call them at 906-9674 or email them at odpem@cwjamaica.com. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you more useful information, I'm Enthros Campbell. Thanks for watching and do take good care.
I'm wasted again, passed out, don't know who I am.
It was the liquor talking, not me.
Underage drinking is a serious matter. Risks include death, serious injuries, impaired judgment, brain development problems, and more. Let's all play our part and ensure that no child under the age of 18 is consuming alcohol. Let's put a stop to underage drinking.
We are in the business of prevention. Let us all ensure that we're partnering to stop our children from consuming alcohol.
I thought I was indestructible.
With the increasing heat we're facing, many of you, like myself, are trying to find ways to cool down this summer. It's all a temporary fix, but sometimes a change of scenery may just be what you need. Let's journey into the cool hills of St. Andrew to Holywell, a good place to visit and get away from the summer heat.
A land of possibilities. With a largely ideal soil and climate for growing many necessary produce, but also a land where a tropical team competes in a cold weather national bobsled sport, a first of its kind, mind you, and above all, a land with a tropical climate. It's warm weather all year round, but with a slight variation between summer and winter, and some more variations in different parishes. This is Jamaica, and this is summer as cold as it gets in Jamaica. Jamaica is located just 18 degrees north of the equator and over 8,000 kilometers from the North Pole. So you get the picture. It's not really that cold. However, despite the tropical climate, you might be surprised to know that there are places in Jamaica where it can get nippy. My first summer stop took me to Holywell, and if you're looking to bundle up this summer, this would be a great place to start. This terrestrial national park is home to some of the most unique plants and animals in the world, and provides an ideal link to the rest of the often cold Blue and Jonkro Mountains. Now that's a tropical mist.
Holywell, which we're now standing at approximately 3,000 feet above sea level, and the typical weather condition is usually very cool. It's a cool climate, usually reaching up to 11 and 12 degrees Celsius.
He said cool, but do you see the fog and mist sweeping in the background and permeating our lens? That's called cold if you ask me.
The offerings in terms of the climate to Holywell, it's usually very cool, and being that it's within a cloud forest, within the Blue and Junkermount National Park, it entails a large cloud cover. For persons usually in the warm cities, they would normally want to come and exploit and enjoy these temperature at times.
And besides the temperature, there's a beauty to contemplate from the flora and fauna that grow and breathe in the area. Even if you're not that into nature, the scene is an immediate attention grabber.
Some of the endemic plant species and animal species that's generally found within the national park. One of the plant species thus far is the soapwood, otherwise known as the Sapium harrisis. It produces a milky sap. Usually it's used to make like a paste. And there are others such as the soapwood tree, known as the Clechra occidentalis. That's like two of the main trees that's found, but there are several other species. There are 28 endemic bird species that's generally found within the park.
If you've looked enough at the majesty of nature, consider taking a hike down the trails.
We have 5 trails on the site. We have the Blue Maho Trail, which entails a detail of the national tree. The first area to the large area of the park, to the main camping site. So it's a linkage trail, so usually persons who come on the site and are unable to walk the long trails would rather to go on a short walk through the Blue Maho Trail. Now apart from that, we have a detail trail, which is known as the Oatley Mountain Trail. It entails several lookout platforms which gives the description of various plants and animal species that can be found within the area. Apart from that, we have a trail called the Sheltered Trail and the Wagwater Trail, which is the actual head of the Wagwater that goes all the way back into St. Mary. Well, I would say the most preferred trail by visitors would definitely be the Oatley Mountain Trail. One reason for that is that it is detailed, it is an interpretive trail. You know, it has lookout platforms viewing different areas of Jamaica, and it also gives details to the exact location as to where you're traveling.
And there's no need to leave the same day. Stay overnight and enjoy the panoramic view of the capital. And don't worry, a ranger station is there for your peace of mind.
Here at Holywell, we offer camping, cabins, and generally you come up on your picnic for the day. We have 3 cabins here inside Holywell, so we have a 2 1-bedroom cabin and a 2-bedroom cabins. So if you don't want to use our cabins, or if we have no cabins available, you can also use our tents. So we have tents and tent site as well, so we have tents for rental, also cots, blow-up beds and all of that stuff.
Oh, and there's even a jungle gym for the little ones. Hike or climb, you decide.
A lot of people come to Holywell and they say that Holywell have a rich history with our ancestors. So a lot of times, from time to time, you find people come up just to relax, and enjoy and be one with the ancestors.
So you see, despite our obvious tropical climate, if you're up for a chilly day or stay in the tropics, being high above sea level, then Holywell may very well be your hideaway this summer.
This is where the magazine ends for today, but if you would like to see more content like this, then visit our YouTube page. We also have all the latest news and updates on our social media pages and our website, jis.gov.jm. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Sandra Johnson. Thank you for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.